But my name's Tom Gleba. I'm the financial secretary of Local 1915. I'm also the rapid response coordinator. I'm the political action coordinator. I'm also the head of the Civil and Human Rights Committee. I come from a long union family. My great-grandfather defected from Russia. He was in the miners' union. My grandfather was an implement worker. He was in the union. My dad was retired from Crescent Manufacturing here in town, USW 959. He was vice president of his local for a while. My mom retired from the United Food and Commercial Workers Union. I was a teamster. I was a sprinkler fitter. I was a auto worker, and then we were PACE when I started at Ludlow, and PACE merged with the Steelworkers in 05, so I've been a steelworker since 05. And my wife is also a Ohio Public School employee. She's a steward at her shop too, so. Big, strong union background. So put this program together for new members on wanting to know how the union works, how to get involved. We're trying to get some activism going in our local, and little informational thing. There's some information in your folder. There's a schedule for the meetings. There's a list of the officers, the executive board. It's not site specific. Most of you should know who your unit chairs are and your grievers are. If you don't, I can find that out for you. You guys obviously know. But here we go. Short PowerPoint presentation. We're an amalgamated local, which means there's not just one central shop. We're amalgamated. We have different shops in different industries. We have American Warming and Ventilating in Bradner. They do a lot of louvers, things of that nature, vents. Duncan Metal Spinning in Toledo, which they make metal, spun, almost like cymbals for a drum, stuff like that. They don't actually do that, but that's spun metal. Build a steel service in Toledo. They cut steel to length and everything else and weld it together goes out to construction sites, so they don't have to do it on site. There's about like 7 guys in that shop. I've actually toured it. It's different, to say the least. Technoglass in Perrysburg, AK Tube Steel in Walbridge, which obviously they make tube. Quality Steel Tank in Fremont, where Linda's from. Green Bay Packaging in Fremont, which is in the same industrial park as Ludlow Deposits. And Carmouche Lime and Stone over in Bettsville, which is a lime quarry. So it runs the gamut of what we do. There's locals in Toledo like 346. We use their hall for our Toledo meetings. They got a BP refinery in their local. They have a Hollywood Casino in their local. They're an amalgamated local like us. So it really runs the gamut. I mean, they have a shop that makes like the cardboard forms for concrete and stuff like that. So. Now, what have you heard about unions? This is the definition of union, the dictionary definition. It's something that is made one. This is the one that actually pertains to us. Something that is made one, something formed by a combining or a coalition of parts or members, such as a confederation of independent individuals, for some common purpose. That's like the definition of a union, and that applies to us as steelworkers. So. Now, here's some common misconceptions that I'm sure you've heard all of these, if not all from the same person, that we only protect lazy workers, terrible workers, nobody has to file a grievance if they're doing their job, stuff like that. Your dues go to the fat cat leaderships. I'm a little overweight, not a fat cat. I'd tell you what I make a month, but you'd probably be appalled. Yeah, we have a socialist political agenda. I'm sure you've heard that. We only work for the officers. The officers only take care of themselves and everything else. And the union does nothing for me. I'm sure you've heard all that in your shop and more. You may have even said some of those things. But when somebody says something like that to me, especially, the officers only work for themselves and everything else, I say, you know what? There is a guy that's the problem. There's a person that's the problem, and I have a picture of him, and I hand him my phone. And I put it on selfie mode. And I didn't do that right. But anyway, that's my finger. But
You're still covering up the camera.
I let them know that if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. I mean, if you don't like the way the union's working for you, or you think it's working against you, get involved. Try to change it from within. Because apathy never solved anything. Now, here's some facts about the steelworkers. I can't speak for every union. power in numbers. We're obviously stronger collectively. One person going to management and saying I don't like this doesn't have the same effect as 150 people going to management saying I don't like this. Fight for the rights of working families, and that's all working families, not just union working families, which we'll get into some of that later. We have a pro-worker political agenda. I go out on political assignment about every election cycle. I will say that we don't. You're going to hear from people, they just tell you to vote for the Democrats. We don't. A good story is a householder who's a Speaker of House in the House of Representatives in the State House. He was running for Speaker. He's a Republican. The Democratic caucus didn't have a chance. They're a minority down there. There was 2 other people running against him. He asked us to use our influence to get him elected Speaker of the House down there, you know. So we reached to the steelworkers as a union, reached out to Republicans and Democrats, got him enough votes to get elected Speaker of the House, and he guaranteed us that if right-to-work legislation comes on his desk, it will not go to a vote. So, and he's a Republican. We've endorsed other Republicans too. It's we look at pro-worker, not, you know, the wedge issues like abortion and, you know, things of that nature. It's pro-worker. So, and if you ever see me out on political or get involved in rapid response, we'll get to that later. There's a big difference between those two. You'll see that. Labor laws. The steelworkers are very adamant, and you know, not only trying to get new labor laws passed, trying to get the NLRB to enforce the ones that are already on the books. And that leads into trade cases. The steelworkers have fought hard for the government to go after China for dumping tires and steel and paper that affects our members. And these are trade laws that are already on the books, but nobody's enforcing them. So we basically grab the government by the hand and say, enforce this trade case. And I used to have a list hanging up in here of all the trade cases in the last 5 years that we have won and lost and that were pending. And the steelworkers have spent millions of dollars just getting the government to enforce their own laws. Collective bargaining, everybody here has a contract. Everybody here just went through contract negotiations. So, I mean, you guys had a 1-year deal and then you came back and got another deal. So everybody knows that collective bargaining works. Grievances and arbitrations, that's your main thing that's the rank and file member, that's the face of the union you're going to see is, I want to file a grievance. Arbitration cases, if your grievance doesn't get settled, you know, in 3 steps, 4 steps, depending on your whatever collective bargaining agreements, you know, yours specifies. Protecting the interests of members, that goes within the legislation and within the community. I mean, different committees you'll see later get involved in political activism and community action to improve the lives of our members. Union households, this is a fact, have a 20% higher median income than non-union households. And whether you think you make more than this factory or not, collectively, as a union, we make 20%. Union people make 20% more than non-union people. It's just a fact. And then, of course, you know, going in with the collective bargaining agreements, your benefits, health insurance, and worker safety. We all, you know, the steelworkers as a whole, at every level, tries to forward those issues, especially worker safety, something that affects everybody. Now, your dues dollar, if you have the booklet in your folder, there's a breakdown in there, but here is where every cent of your dues dollar goes. 44 cents comes right back to me, this local, right back to your local. That's where we pay lost time for education, we pay for arbitrations for that, lost time for grievance processing, we pay for this office, education, and Labor Day, things like that. That all comes out of the locals' money, and 44 cents of every dollar you pay in dues goes to that. 7 cents goes to strike and defense fund. The steelworkers do have a strike and defense fund that has like tens of millions of dollars in it. If a unit would ever go out on strike or local goes on strike, there is money you can get. There is catastrophic insurance you can get while you're out on strike, because unless you're locked out, you can't collect unemployment. 3 cents goes to organizing, trying to increase our numbers, and then internal organizing too. I just worked an organizing drive about 6 months ago over in Bellevue, an unsuccessful one, but 3 cents of every dues dollar goes to pay for things like that. 44 cents goes into the international and that's in Pittsburgh, where they have strategic campaigns, political department, local union services, and things like that. The administration of the International Union. 1 cent goes to education programs. District 1, in fact, I'm in a leadership scholarship program, which has people from all over North America, and my instructor on year 2 actually told me District 1, which is Ohio, is one of the most education forward districts in North America. The District 1 really stresses education. If you do get involved as an activist in the union or get involved in the union, you'll have all kinds of educational opportunities. 1 cent goes to legislative action. That's lobbying for workers' interests in DC. We have a lobbying department in DC that actually goes to lawmakers, tells them, you know, we support this bill, this bill will support workers, and 1 cent goes to that. And 0, repeat, 0, I can't stress this enough, goes to any political candidate. It is against our bylaws and the National Labor Relations Act, I believe, for any portion of your dues dollar to go to any particular candidate. So in the last presidential election, nobody's dues went to Hillary Clinton. Nobody's dues went to Donald Trump. That's all funded by voluntary PAC donations. If you want to donate to PAC, you can. I have forms for it. I donate $10 a pay period. If you donate 5, you get like a hat. You donate 10, I think you get a jacket. And that goes to, like when I'm out on political, that's what pays my lost time, the PAC fund. So, a little bit of USW history. 1935, the Steelworkers Organizing Committee was formed with the assistance of the United Mine Workers that were already organized. John L. Lewis and the Congress of Industrial Organizations. The CIO, which is now the AFL-CIO, they merged with the American Federation of Labor. And the National Labor Relations Act made it easier for these unions to form and made it easier for our elections to define what we can and cannot do in the workplace. A little more history because the steelworker history fascinates me, so you're going to get a big portion of this. The SWOC founding principles, the Steelworkers Organizing founding principles. To unite one organization, regardless of creed, color, nationality, all workmen and working women eligible for membership. That's one big thing that the steelworkers always stress is inclusion. We include everybody. Unity. Our last Constitutional Convention, the theme of that was the power of unity. Anybody from, I mean, you'll see in the history thing that we organized African Americans, we organized Italian immigrants, we organized Chinese immigrants, anybody. That's why you see the diversity in what industries we have in our local now. We have nurses, telecommunications is a huge one in Canada for the steel workers, mine workers, casino workers. There's actually a local near here, they have a shop that makes hamburgers for McDonald's, and then there's also a shop that's a steelworker shop that makes the buns for McDonald's. So that's one thing that you'll always hear stressed is inclusion. We don't want to exclude anybody because we're stronger together, and the more people that come to the party, the better the party's going to be, right? So then increase wages and improve conditions for employment of all members by legislation, joint agreements, or other legitimate means. To endeavor to obtain by joint negotiation or legislative inaction a 6-hour workday and a 5-day week. I haven't quite achieved that yet. To strive for a minimum wage scale for our members of our organization, provide for the education of our children by lawfully prohibiting their employment until they've reached 18 years of age. That's a little dicey too. To secure equitable statutory old age pension, workers' compensation, and unemployment insurance laws. To enforce existing just laws and to secure the repeal of those which are unjust, which we're still doing today. And this is 1935. To secure by legislative action laws protecting the limbs, lives, and health of our members, establishing our right to organize, protecting the employment of privately armed guards, or preventing the employment of privately armed guards during labor disputes, and such other legislation that will be beneficial. So, those are the founding principles. Obviously, there's a few things that we've hit, a few things that we've missed, but I think for the most part, that's still what we're endeavoring to do today. Now, a little bit of USW history. One of the first attempts to organize steelworkers were Carnegie Steel in Homestead, Pennsylvania. I've actually toured the site that the Homestead strike happened. It happened in 1892. It was an unsuccessful strike. The Carnegie Company actually brought in Pinkerton guards that were armed. There was a lot of shooting. About 9 people died. I've actually toured the pump house in Pittsburgh, or in Homestead, where the shootout happened. If you ever want to, I'm not going to get into it too much because we don't have a hell of a lot of time, but if you ever want an interesting story, look up the Homestead strike, even on the Wikipedia page, and you'd be fascinated. Some of the stuff that happened in the United States, I mean, and there's some of the workers from the Homestead strike. In May 1937, the Memorial Day Massacre of Republic Steel in South Chicago, 9 steel workers and 1 bystander killed by police armed by Republic Steel. Now, these companies to bust these unions would hire armed guards, basically private armies. Paramount Pictures had a newsreel that was a focal point and led to congressional hearings about what happened there and what laws were broken. You're going to see some of these pictures that just kind of drive home that people actually got beat down, people actually lost their lives for your right to be in a union, particularly this union, the United Steelworkers. I mean, it happened to everybody, but it's not just like that Hoffa movie that Jack Nicholson was in. I mean, this stuff really happened. I mean, you can see police beating strikers with billy clubs. It puts things into perspective on what we take for granted. And you can see some immigrant workers being organized, Steelworkers Organizing Committee. And then, in 1937, 240 employees at the Fremont Foundry registered with the Steelworkers Organizing Committee. And then on May 22nd, 1942, the United Steelworkers of America chartered this local, 1915, which started in 1937 at the Fremont Foundry. And the first international president of the USWA was Philip Murray. And right back there is the 77 almost year old charter from the original United Steelworkers. This local, 1915. Needs a new frame. Our headquarters is in Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh. Obviously the headquarters is in Pittsburgh, PA. There's a picture of me standing in front of the headquarters. Just thought I'd get a little plug for myself in there. Our international president right now is Tom Conway. He just took office in July of this year, July 15th. Our former president, Leo Gerard, stepped down, retired. So Tom Conway, who is the international vice president administration, took over as the international president. There's Mr. Conway speaking at a banquet that I was at in June in Dawson, Pennsylvania. That's my butter. I actually got to speak with him while he was outside smoking a cigarette. We talked about lawn mowing. He says he has six feet of grass in front of his condo, and a couple guys come down once a week and mow it. That's it. There's another shameless plug of me. That's me and former international president Leo Gerard. District 1 is all of Ohio, and our new District 1 director is Donnie Blatt, the guy who did our contract at Ludlow, or finished up our contract at Ludlow. Donnie was a former assistant to the director, former rapid response coordinator for District 1. Our District 1, the former District 1 director, is now the International Vice President of Administration, Dave McCall. So he's in Pittsburgh now, so he moved on up. And so did Donnie. We do have a new assistant to the director that took Donnie's place, which was the previous Women of Steel coordinator. She's still taking that on as far as District 1. Teresa Hartley, if you ever meet Teresa, she's a great person. Donnie, great guy. I thought a lot of him, and then when we got into negotiations with him, I was in awe of him because he has such an easy charm, and within a day or two he had the company wanting to please him, as far as vice versa. And if you ever get to meet Donnie, great guy. And one thing about the District 1 directors, Dave McCall and Donnie Blatt, when they email you something, it doesn't say, Donald Blatt, District 1 Director, or anything. It'll just say, thanks, Donnie. Dave McCall was the same way. Thanks, Dave. So they're not fat cats. You never see them with an entourage. They always drive themselves places. And like I said, Donnie's a great guy. I think he's going to do great things for the district. Moving on. Leadership on the sub-district level. We are in sub-district 1, which is a lot of northern Ohio, even over towards Cleveland. Our sub-district director is Pat Gallagher. Another great guy, another great labor leader. Our staff representatives right now, Nellie Carvalho is no longer our staff rep. I just found that out Monday. So Kenny Frankfurter, who was out on political or staff casual, is going to take over the entire local now. So have you met Kenny? I know he did your contract, but Kenny's a great guy too. He knows his stuff. He comes out of 207L in Findlay, Ohio, Cooper Tire, large local. Went through a very difficult lockout down there a few years ago. There's a big poster of it in my office there. And he knows his stuff, so I think we're going to do well with him. And then we go to our local 1915 executive board. Jan Zaleski is the president. You two know Jan. You've met Jan at the meeting?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Dan Connor is our vice president. I'm the financial secretary. Kevin Williamson is the treasurer. Laura Robinson is our recording secretary. Vince Johnson out of AK Tube and Walbridge is our inside guard. Harold Lewis also is the out of AK Tube. The outside guard, Charlie Ross from Quality Steel Tank, is our guide. Eric Herder out of Green Bay Packaging is one of our trustees. Whenever we say trustee number 1, trustee number 2, so to speak, is John Piper. He's out of American Warming and Ventilating. And trustee number 3, Steve Postel. He's out of Green Bay Packaging as well. So here's your local union executive board. Whenever anybody says the e-board or the e-board's meeting or we got to take an e-board vote, these are the people we're talking about. So. Ways you can get involved in this local or on a district level. Attend meetings. You know, obviously, that's the first thing you can do is come to a meeting. That way you know what goes on. Everybody's invited to the meetings. There's a meeting schedule in your folder. Everybody knows, you know, should know when the meetings are. If, you know, nobody's posting things at your work site, ask me. You can Facebook me. I'll give you my phone number. You can text me. I will tell you when the meetings are. We have half of our meetings in Toledo, half of our meetings in Fremont to accommodate both shops, both demographic areas. If you don't want to drive to the Toledo meeting, I'm usually here till 10 a.m. and then I drive to Toledo. If you can get your ass here to Fremont by 10 a.m., I will drive you to Toledo and bring you back to your car. So, next way you can get involved, join a committee. I'm going to go over some of the committees we have in our local. Some of them are constitutionally mandated, so we have to have them, but we like to have them anyway. Some of them aren't very well staffed right now, so we do need people to get involved. You can run for office. If you're a member in good standing for 1 year and you've attended 2/3 of the meetings in the last 10 years, or 2 years, yeah, you can run for office. You're eligible to run for office for this local. You can run for any of the offices on the e-board. You can run for offices in your unit. Grievance and negotiating committees. Hang on, did I go through everything? Yeah, I did, okay. One of the committees, grievance and negotiating committee, they have this at every unit. Some units combine them, some units don't. I think did you guys elect a separate negotiating committee?
I have no idea.
I think you may have. Ours at Ludlow is the same. We just have a committee at Ludlow. They handle contract negotiations, grievance handling, obviously. At our unit and your unit, you have a unit chair and you have grievers. They process your grievances, union management relations, whether through union management meetings, safety committees and things like that. You all have stewards or grievers. That's the first line of defense. That's usually the face of the union for most rank and file members. And most committees, especially grievance committees, are unit chairperson and however many grievers you need to handle your shifts and your per capita of people. I know at our plant, it's we have a unit chair. I'm the unit secretary, and then we have 2 grievers. But we all process grievances whenever we're available. So, next up, Women of Steel, which everybody in here except for me is eligible. It's a community. They're involved in community activism, as far as helping out, doing charity work and things like that. Obviously, charitable work. They get a lot of support from our local. I know that I never vote against anything for the Women of Steel because It's usually nothing outlandish, and I think they do good work. And they also fight for women's rights in the workplace. And you can see some of our previous members here. You guys may recognize Jackie, Jackie Skeel. But here's they did a school supply drive that they donated to needy kids. They had book bags and Kleenexes and notebooks and paper and everything else, and they distributed them to needy kids in the area. I know they did blessing bags one time. They identified places within the communities that homeless people were staying, and they made bags up of toiletries and gloves and hats and things like that, and socks, and they tied them around trees with a bow and a little note saying, hey, this is from us, grab it, use it, you know, hope it helps out. I know for a while, anytime anybody was traveling on union business, our women of steel said, hey, bring home the soap and the shampoo and everything. And they collected it in a thing out here, and they would take it over to the Liberty Center across the street, the homeless shelter. So they would have stuff like that, and they always appreciate things like that. We were talking about doing a Thanksgiving meal this year, and I was going to help out with that, but I could not find a hall for it. So some of the things women of steel do. Health, Safety, and Environmental Committee. They're having a big conference in Pittsburgh in September. We're sending Jan Zaleski, Harold Lewis, and John Piper, I believe. They're all on that committee. Obviously, workplace safety, environmental concerns, workers' health issues, and like I said, the steelworkers in District 1 always focus on education, and one of the big things they do is OSHA training. You can become a certified OSHA outreach instructor, and a lot of times your employer will subsidize part of that, but if they don't, the local always, I mean, as a local, we always think it's a good idea to have somebody with that training in each facility. Excuse me. But there's like 3 courses you can take. One of them is a week long. It's like an incremental thing. So if you're interested in that, that's a committee you could get on. And these are all committees that are appointed. You don't have to be elected to these. Next Gen, which is right now I believe it's 40 and under. It was 35 and under, but they changed it to 40 and under. It's kind of an organization, a committee to foster leadership, because I'm not going to be here forever. Obviously, Janet's going to be here forever. You've seen there's already been some transitions with people retiring within the district and the international. So it's empowering younger members, trying to bring up leaders. They do a lot of education on the Next Gen thing. There's a lot of involvement, a lot of outreach with that, trying to get younger members involved, and obviously involvement and engagement within the local. So I know there's community action. There's some Next Gen committees that guys I know that are on them from different locals. They do like bicycle safety things, and they give away helmets and everything else, and have little bicycle obstacle courses, things like that. Fun things for kids to do, and they learn a little bit. Workers' Compensation Committee assists members with BWC claims. We got a couple people that, especially Dan Connor, is really educated in this. He's actually went to workers' compensation hearings to help represent members and everything. And obviously education on that, and investigating workplace accidents, and this is something that we really need to staff, I think, because I think it's really important that everybody comes home the same way they went to work, maybe just a little more tired. Rapid Response, this is a committee that I head up, and this is a grassroots education, communication, and action program. We focus on issues, not candidates. There's a Rapid Response flyer in your folders about right to work. It's not calling on any particular candidate, anything like that. We do a lot of action calls where I usually have them at the meeting. I'll do a rapid response report, and I'll say, hey, here's an action call. Take this to your work site and post it up if you want to. I'm trying to get a network put together where I can just text blast or email blast people. You can sign up for the texts for rapid response. I can show you how. We do a lot of phone calls. I'll give people a card with your representative, the office building where your representative is. You call that, you put in your zip code, it connects you to your representative's office. You tell them, hey, right now we're doing the Workplace Safety Act, which we're doing a big drive for that. I had cards in the lunchroom at Ludlow to try to encourage our representatives, to our 2 senators and the chairman of the OSHA, basically, Secretary of Labor, I'm sorry. Trying to get them to support this workplace safety bill that basically focuses on healthcare workers and gives them a little more recourse and a little more protection when it comes to getting. So I think everybody here knows a nurse or a healthcare worker or somebody who works in a nursing home, that somebody's taking a swing at them or something like that. Phone calls, like I said, we do phone calls, petition drives. We've done petition drives, especially a few years ago. Senate Bill 5 here in Ohio was basically right to work legislation. Lobbying, and then we do, had somebody come down and help me out, Donnie Blatt actually, with a rapid response training a few years ago. We can do that if we get enough people involved. But when we start with these heavy drives, like I said, I haven't really pushed too much with the postcards, but it's an issue thing. It's not really a political thing. It's pro-worker issues, bills, legislation, things like that. So that's how it's separate from the Political Action Committee. Political Action Committee, I'm also the chairperson of this committee. And this is pro-worker candidates. We do specific campaigns, Sherrod Brown, things like that. Phone banking, if you help me out with this, I will have you sitting here with the laptop computer making phone calls through a computer. It's really easy. The FLCIOs get this really cool thing set up to do that automating. I've done plant leafleting. I've had rank file members help me out, or people that want to get involved with political action help me leaflet parking lots and things like that. I did not do Green Bay packing or quality steel tank the last election cycle, but I did do Green Bay. I did like 2 days in all 3 shifts down at Cooper Tire and Findlay. So door-to-door canvassing, I've knocked more doors than I care to admit in my career. And like I said, this is all funded through voluntary contributions. So you either do payroll deduction, you can do an automatic thing online from your debit card or whatever. Most contracts, I know ours at Ludlow, I'm not sure about yours, has PAC language in it. So if you sign up for PAC, the company has to deduct it, send it to them. The USPA, the United Steelworkers Press Association, I'm also a member of this. Local newsletter, I've been slacking on it lately. I'm going to ramp it up because we have a lot of stuff to report. But I got some examples of our local newsletter. I haven't put one out in probably 6 months. But I usually give a pile of them to all the unit chairs that come to the meetings, and then I put together what I call shame packages. The unit chairs that don't come to the meetings that we never see, I send them a manila envelope with 10 or 15 newsletters in it and a big old meeting schedule, and send it to them without a note explaining it or anything else. Cover labor events, and there's journalistic opportunities. Like I said, I'm the only one doing the newsletter right now. If anybody ever wants to write anything for the newsletter or help me out with it, I'm right here, okay? I can send you places to take pictures and stuff, so. Civil Rights Committee, I'm also the chair of this. Helping out discrimination in the workplace, civil and human rights in the workplace, protecting members in the workplace, and social issues. I mean, women's rights, homosexual rights, things like that. I mean, racial issues. Everybody's seen it at their workplaces. I know we've seen it at ours. I'm sure you've seen it at yours. If you want to get involved in this, ask me how. And then what I want to finish up with is this is your union. It's not my union. This isn't my office, although that's my desk in there. But I don't own the desk. You guys own the desk. Okay? This is your office. This is your union. That building in Pittsburgh you saw me grinning in front of like a douche, that's your building. The union belongs to you. Your dues pay for everything. Everybody that works for the union works for you, and you also work for your union. It's a symbiotic relationship. The USW is large and diverse with a lot of hardworking men and women from every profession. Mine workers, oil workers, steel workers, aluminum workers, rubber workers, paper workers, casino workers, bakery workers, glass workers, pottery workers, pharmaceutical workers, telecom workers, city and municipal workers. The list goes on and on and on. And if your union's not functioning, it's because we rely on members like you. And if you guys aren't helping the union function, the union's not going to function right. So your involvement in this union is crucial. It's only going to make this local better. It's only going to make this sub-district better, this district better, and this international better. If you get involved, so step up, speak up, stand out, make a difference. I'm very rah-rah union. Those of you that know me a little better than others know that. I think you get out of this union exactly what you put into it. If you just pay your dues, and go to work and don't attend meetings and everything else, you're going to be that person saying, well, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? Well, you know what? Come to a meeting and find out why we're doing this. Come to a meeting and find out why we're doing that. And if you don't like us doing this, and you don't like us doing that, try to change it. I may disagree with people in this union and what people want to do in this union, but God damn it, I'm going to fight for their right to do it, to disagree with me. And if you're involved enough to disagree with me, then I'm not going to fault you for it. I'm going to pat you on the back for it. Because like I said, apathy never solved anything, and if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And I urge everybody to get involved in the union. Take the stuff home. There's a copy of the Constitution in there. There's a pamphlet on District 1. There's a pamphlet on the International. There's ways to get involved. There's a list of your e-board. There's a list of the meetings. There's a card with your Weingarten rights in there. A lot of people, especially new members, don't even know their Weingarten rights. Take that card, put it in your purse, put it in your pocket, stick it in your locker at work. Exercise, be a union member. Don't just be a dues payer. And that's all I got for you. Thanks, guys.